What if I told you that the person everyone notices in the room isn't necessarily the most beautiful, the richest, or the best dressed? What if true attraction has almost nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with the energy you bring into the lives of other people? We spend so much time trying to improve how we look, but we forget to improve how we make people feel. And that's where real attraction begins. Because when people feel safe around you, inspired by you, respected by you, and understood by you, something powerful happens. They don't just notice you. They remember you. Attraction begins with purpose, not appearance. We live in a world that constantly teaches us to believe the opposite. We are told that if we look better, dress better, have a better body, take better photographs, or present a more impressive image, people will automatically be drawn toward us. But appearance can only take you so far. It may capture someone's attention for a moment, but it cannot create lasting interest by itself. What creates deeper attraction is the sense that there is something meaningful behind the person standing in front of us. Think about the people you naturally respect and remember. They are not always the most physically attractive people in the room. Sometimes they are ordinary-looking people who somehow seem extraordinary because they know who they are. They have direction. They have principles. They care about something bigger than themselves. When they speak, there is conviction behind their words. When they make decisions, they are not constantly looking around to see whether everyone approves. There is something grounded about them. That groundedness is powerful. Purpose gives you that foundation. When you understand your purpose, you stop living entirely for external validation. You no longer wake up every morning wondering, how do I make people like me? Instead, you begin asking a much more meaningful question. What kind of person do I want to become? And what kind of contribution do I want to make? That shift changes everything. Your conversations change. Your decisions change. Your priorities change. Even your presence changes. Imagine two people walking into the same room. One is constantly checking how others are reacting to them. They adjust their personality depending on who they are talking to. They laugh when they don't find something funny. They agree with opinions they don't actually share. They desperately want to be perceived as impressive. The other person doesn't need to dominate the room. They are comfortable being themselves. They listen. They speak honestly. They know what matters to them. They don't need everyone to approve of them. Who feels more compelling? Often, it is the second person, not because they are perfect, but because they are authentic. Purpose creates a kind of confidence that appearance alone cannot provide. If your confidence depends entirely on your looks, compliments, money, status, or attention, then your confidence is fragile. The moment someone criticizes you, ignores you, or chooses somebody else, your sense of worth can collapse. But when your confidence comes from knowing what you stand for, external opinions lose some of their power. This doesn't mean appearance doesn't matter. Taking care of yourself matters. Dressing well can communicate respect. Physical health can improve energy and confidence. Looking your best can certainly influence first impressions. But these things should become expressions of who you are, not substitutes for developing who you are. There is a profound difference between trying to look valuable and becoming valuable. When you build skills, develop wisdom, keep your promises, treat people with respect, overcome challenges, and contribute something meaningful, you create internal value. You begin to respect yourself for reasons that have nothing to do with a mirror, and that self-respect changes the way you interact with people. You don't have to constantly prove yourself. You don't need to exaggerate your achievements. You don't need to compete with everyone around you. You can celebrate another person's success without feeling threatened by it. You can admit when you are wrong without feeling destroyed. You can walk away from situations that don't align with your values. You can say no without feeling guilty. That is attractive because it communicates security. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who appear comfortable with themselves. Not arrogant, not superior, comfortable. There is a difference. Arrogance says, I am better than you. Genuine confidence says, I don't need to be better than you to know my worth. So if you want to become more attractive, don't begin by asking what you can change about your face, body, clothes, or image. Ask yourself a deeper question. What am I living for? Find something worth pursuing. Build something meaningful. Serve someone. Learn something difficult. Stand for something. Become dependable. Develop your character, because when you have a reason to get out of bed that is bigger than being admired, you stop chasing attention. And you start developing presence. And eventually, people notice. They notice that you have direction. They notice that you don't need constant validation. They notice that your words have weight because your actions support them. They notice that there is something behind the appearance. And that is the deeper truth. Your face may introduce you. Your style may attract attention. But your purpose is what gives people a reason to remember you. The energy you bring into a room can be more powerful than the image you carefully create before entering it. You can wear the best clothes, have an impressive appearance, and say all the right things, but people will still respond to something deeper, how they feel in your presence. This is why attraction is not simply about looking good. It is about creating an emotional experience. People remember how you made them feel long after they forget exactly what you were wearing or what you said. Think about someone you genuinely enjoy being around. Maybe they aren't the most physically attractive person you know. Maybe they don't have the loudest personality or the highest social status. Yet whenever they enter the room, something changes. People become more relaxed. Conversations become easier. There is laughter, curiosity, confidence, or calmness. That person carries an energy that makes others want to stay close. Now think about the opposite. You may meet someone who looks impressive but constantly complains, judges others, talks only about themselves, or desperately seeks approval. Their appearance might attract attention initially, but after spending time with them, you may feel exhausted. This reveals something important. Attraction is not only about what people see, it is also about what they experience. Your energy communicates before your words do. When you walk into a room believing that everyone is evaluating you, your behavior can become tense. You might overthink your movements, worry about saying the wrong thing, or constantly monitor other people's reactions. You become focused on yourself because you are trying so hard to control how others perceive you. But there is another way to enter the room. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" ask, "How can I make this interaction meaningful?" That simple shift takes you out of performance mode and puts you into contribution mode. You become curious instead of anxious. You listen instead of rehearsing. You smile because you're genuinely enjoying the moment rather than because you are trying to appear confident. You become present. And presence is one of the most powerful forms of attraction. This is closely connected to purpose. Tests: when your life is built around something meaningful, you don't need every interaction to validate your identity. You can meet someone without needing them to approve of you. You can have a conversation without trying to impress them. You can disagree without becoming defensive. That emotional freedom creates a powerful presence. Authentic confidence is not about entering every room believing you are the most important person there. It is about entering the room knowing you have nothing to prove. You don't have to be the funniest person. You don't have to have the most impressive story. You don't have to command everyone's attention. You simply have to be fully present. And being present means listening when someone speaks. It means looking at them rather than constantly checking your phone. It means asking questions because you actually want to understand them. It means allowing conversations to develop naturally instead of constantly trying to steer them toward yourself. People can feel the difference between genuine interest and performance. If you are pretending to care, eventually the performance becomes obvious. But when you genuinely care about people, your behavior becomes natural. You don't have to memorize techniques for being charismatic. You simply become someone who gives attention generously. There is also an important lesson here about emotional responsibility. Your energy is not something you should use to manipulate people. Being positive does not mean pretending to be happy all the time. You are allowed to have difficult days. You are allowed to be tired, disappointed, or uncertain. Real emotional strength means you can acknowledge what you feel without allowing every emotion to control how you treat others. You can walk into a room having a difficult day and still be respectful. You can be nervous and still be courageous. You can be uncertain and still listen. You can be imperfect and still bring warmth into the lives of others. That is authentic energy. So stop thinking that you have to manufacture a certain image to become attractive. You don't need to pretend to be mysterious, overly confident, constantly positive, or effortlessly cool. Instead, develop the qualities that make your presence valuable. Become someone who brings calm instead of unnecessary drama. Bring curiosity instead of judgment. Bring encouragement instead of competition. Bring honesty instead of performance. Bring attention instead of distraction. Because when people consistently feel better, safer, more understood, or more inspired after spending time with you, they naturally want more of your presence. And that is the real secret. You don't become magnetic by demanding attention. You become magnetic by becoming someone whose presence genuinely adds value to the lives of others. One of the most powerful things you can give another human being is the feeling that they matter. Not because they are useful to you, not because they can give you something, not because you want their approval, but simply because you recognize their humanity and give them your genuine attention. This is where attraction moves beyond appearance and becomes something much deeper. People may notice your face, your clothes, your confidence, or your achievements, but they remember the person who made them feel seen. Think about the last time someone listened to you without interrupting. They didn't keep looking at their phone. They didn't immediately turn the conversation back toward themselves. They didn't prepare a judgment while you were speaking. They were simply there, completely present. That experience can feel surprisingly rare. And because it is rare, it becomes memorable. Being seen is powerful. In a world filled with distractions, genuine attention has become a form of generosity. We are surrounded by notifications, screens, short conversations, and constant demands for our attention. People can be physically present while mentally somewhere else. They can sit across from you while scrolling through their phone. They can ask, "How are you?" while already preparing to tell you about themselves. So when someone actually listens, we notice. This doesn't mean you need to become a perfect conversationalist. You don't need clever questions or impressive stories. Sometimes attraction begins with something much simpler. Being interested in another person's world. Ask them what they care about. Ask what they are learning. Ask what challenges them. Ask what excites them. And when they answer, don't immediately search for an opportunity to talk about yourself. Stay with their answer. Ask another question. Notice the details. That communicates something powerful. Your experience matters to me. But there is an important distinction between listening and pretending to listen. People can usually sense the difference. If you are paying attention only because you want someone to become attached to you, your attention becomes a strategy. Genuine connection cannot be built on manipulation. The goal is not to make someone dependent on you. The goal is to create relationships where both people feel respected, heard, and valued. This principle applies far beyond romantic relationships. It applies to friendships, families, workplaces, leadership, and everyday interactions. A leader who remembers someone's name and asks about their goals communicates respect. A friend who notices that something is wrong without demanding an explanation communicates care. A parent who puts aside distractions and listens to a child's worries communicates security. A partner who can hear difficult feelings without immediately becoming defensive communicates emotional maturity. These qualities create trust, and trust is one of the strongest foundations of meaningful attraction. When people feel safe around you, they can relax. They don't have to constantly manage your reaction. They don't have to pretend everything is perfect. They can express an opinion without fearing ridicule. They can admit mistakes without being humiliated. They can show vulnerability without feeling weak. That kind of environment is deeply valuable. But making people feel seen doesn't mean agreeing with everything they say. You can listen to someone and still disagree. You can respect their feelings without accepting every conclusion they reach. You can have boundaries while remaining compassionate. In fact, healthy boundaries make genuine connections stronger because they demonstrate that respect goes in both directions. Another important part of making people feel valued is remembering that attention should not always be dramatic. Sometimes it is simply remembering something they told you weeks ago. Sometimes it is noticing when their mood changes. Sometimes it is celebrating their small victory. Sometimes it is checking in when there is no obvious reason to do so. These small moments communicate something profound. I remember you. And people rarely forget the person who made them feel remembered. This is why developing your attractiveness should involve developing your ability to connect. Learn to listen. Learn to ask better questions. Learn to pause before responding. Learn to put your ego aside. Learn to become curious about people instead of constantly trying to prove yourself to them. When you do this, conversations become deeper, relationships become stronger, and your presence becomes more meaningful. Because ultimately, people don't just want to be around someone who looks impressive. They want to be around someone with whom they can be themselves. So the next time you enter a conversation, don't focus entirely on how you are being perceived. Shift your attention outward. Look at the person in front of you. Listen carefully. Be curious. Give them your full presence. You may discover that the most attractive thing you can offer isn't another compliment, another impressive story, or another attempt to look perfect. It is the simple experience of making another human being feel that, for those few moments, they truly matter. Real confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward even when fear is present. Many people misunderstand confidence because they think confident people are naturally fearless, always certain, and completely comfortable in every situation. But that is not how genuine confidence works. Confidence is built through evidence. Every time you face something difficult, take a meaningful risk, keep a promise to yourself, or recover from failure, you give yourself another reason to believe, I can handle this. That kind of confidence is far more powerful than confidence based on appearance. You can tell yourself all day that you are attractive, successful, talented, or capable. But if you constantly avoid challenges, your mind will eventually notice the contradiction. Deep down, you know what you have been avoiding. You know which conversations you have postponed, which opportunities you rejected because you were afraid, and which dreams you abandoned because failure seemed possible. Confidence grows when you stop running from those moments. Imagine someone who wants to become a public speaker, but is terrified of speaking in front of people. They could spend months reading books about confidence and watching motivational videos. They could buy better clothes and practice their appearance in the mirror. But eventually, they have to stand in front of an audience and speak. The first attempt may be uncomfortable. Their voice might shake. They might forget a sentence. They might make a mistake. But something important happens afterward. They discover they survived. Then they try again. The second time may be slightly easier. The third time may be better. Eventually, their brain begins collecting evidence that says, I can do difficult things. That is how confidence is built. The same principle applies to everyday life. If you want to become more socially confident, have conversations even when you feel nervous. If you want to become more disciplined, keep small promises to yourself. If you want to become more courageous, tell the truth when honesty feels uncomfortable. If you want to become more capable, learn something that challenges you. Every courageous action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. This is why confidence cannot be completely separated from character. When you consistently do what you say you will do, you begin trusting yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of authentic confidence. You don't need to convince yourself that you are perfect. You simply need to know that when life becomes difficult, you will show up. That belief changes your presence. You walk differently. You communicate differently. You stop desperately searching for approval because you know your worth isn't determined by every person's reaction to you. But courage doesn't mean acting recklessly. Courage means taking thoughtful action despite uncertainty. Sometimes courage means starting a business. Sometimes it means applying for an opportunity. Sometimes it means admitting you made a mistake. Sometimes it means ending a situation that is unhealthy. Sometimes it means asking for help. Not every courageous action looks impressive from the outside. Some of the bravest decisions happen quietly. You decide to stop comparing yourself to everyone else. You decide to stop pretending to be someone you're not. You decide to take responsibility for your choices. You decide to develop yourself instead of blaming circumstances. You decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. These choices build confidence from the inside out. And this matters for attraction because people often respond to emotional stability more than performance. Someone who is comfortable admitting, I don't know, can be more compelling than someone who pretends to know everything. Someone who can accept rejection without becoming bitter demonstrates strength. Someone who can receive criticism without immediately becoming defensive demonstrates maturity. True confidence leaves room for humility. You don't need to prove that you're the smartest person in the room. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to make everyone admire you. Your confidence becomes stronger when you realize that your value doesn't disappear simply because someone disagrees with you. So stop waiting until you feel confident before taking action. Take action and let confidence catch up. Do the difficult thing. Start the conversation. Learn the skill. Take the opportunity. Accept the possibility of failure. Then learn from what happens, because every time you act with courage, you send yourself a message. I can trust myself. And eventually, that message becomes part of who you are. Your confidence no longer depends entirely on your appearance, compliments, attention, or social status. It comes from knowing that whatever happens, you are willing to face it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. That is the kind of confidence that people can feel. And more importantly, it is the kind of confidence that allows you to feel at home in your own life. Looks change. Circumstances change. Status can disappear. Trends come and go. But character has a way of revealing what remains when everything superficial is removed. This is why becoming attractive cannot simply be about improving how you look. If you want to create a presence that lasts, you have to develop the qualities that people can trust. Your appearance may open a door, but your character determines what happens after you walk through it. Imagine meeting someone who looks incredibly confident and successful. They dress well, speak with certainty, and seem to have everything under control. At first, you may be impressed. But then you spend more time with them and discover that they constantly disrespect people, break promises, manipulate conversations, or take credit for other people's work. Suddenly, the attraction begins to disappear. Why? Because the image was impressive, but the character was not. Now imagine someone else who may not have the most remarkable appearance, but they are dependable. They treat people with respect, whether those people can benefit them or not. They keep their word. They admit when they are wrong. They don't need to humiliate someone else to feel powerful. They celebrate the success of others without becoming jealous. Over time, you begin to trust them. That trust creates a deeper form of attraction. Character is revealed most clearly when there is nothing to gain. It is easy to be kind when everyone is watching. It is easy to appear generous when generosity earns praise. It is easy to act confident when everything is going your way. The real test comes when nobody is watching. How do you treat the person who cannot give you anything? How do you behave when you are frustrated? What do you do when you make a mistake? How do you respond when someone receives an opportunity you wanted? How do you behave when you have power over someone else? Those moments reveal character, and people eventually notice. You cannot maintain an attractive image forever if your behavior repeatedly contradicts it. Eventually, people experience the real you. That is why building character is more valuable than building a perfect image. Integrity is especially powerful. Integrity means your actions are consistent with your values. You don't say one thing and secretly live another way. You don't become a completely different person depending on who is watching. Your behavior has a foundation. That consistency creates trust, and trust creates emotional safety. People want to know that your kindness isn't temporary. They want to know that your respect doesn't disappear when you become angry. They want to know that your promises mean something. They want to know that you won't suddenly become cruel when you don't get what you want. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Nobody is. In fact, one of the most attractive qualities a person can develop is the ability to take responsibility. When you make a mistake, don't waste your energy creating excuses. Say, I was wrong. Learn from it. Repair what you can. Change your behavior. There is strength in accountability. Humility is another quality that makes character attractive. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means you don't need to think you're better than everyone else. You can recognize your strengths while remaining open to learning. A truly confident person can say, I don't know. They can ask for help. They can listen to someone younger than them. They can change their opinion when new information proves them wrong. That kind of openness makes relationships stronger because people don't feel like they are constantly competing with your ego. Character also involves kindness, but kindness should not be confused with weakness. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can forgive someone without allowing them to repeatedly disrespect you. You can care about others without abandoning yourself. Healthy character combines compassion with strength. And this is where long-term attraction becomes different from short-term attention. Attention asks, who looks impressive? Character asks, who can I trust? The first question may create curiosity. The second creates connection. So if you want to become genuinely attractive, don't only ask, how can I improve my appearance? Ask, what kind of person am I becoming? Are you becoming more reliable, more patient, more courageous, more honest, more generous, more emotionally mature, more disciplined, more respectful? These qualities may not show up in a photograph, but they show up in every relationship you build. And eventually, people remember them. Your appearance might be the first thing someone notices, but your character is what they experience repeatedly. Your face may change with time, but the way you make people feel can remain powerful for decades. So build a character that doesn't need an audience. Keep promises when nobody is checking. Be respectful when you have nothing to gain. Tell the truth when lying would be easier. Help people without needing applause. Own your mistakes. Celebrate others. Stand by your values. Because the strongest form of attractiveness isn't convincing people that you're impressive. It is becoming the kind of person whose presence naturally earns respect, trust, and admiration. Stop trying so hard to be attractive and start becoming someone worth being around. This may sound like a small change in language, but it represents a completely different way of living. When you make attraction the goal, your attention becomes focused on how other people perceive you. You start asking whether you look good enough, whether people are impressed, whether someone is interested, whether you received enough attention, and whether you are being chosen. But when you make personal growth the goal, your attention moves inward. You begin asking a much more powerful question. Am I becoming the kind of person I respect? That question can transform your life. There is nothing wrong with wanting to look good. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be admired, loved, or appreciated. These are natural human desires. The problem begins when your entire sense of worth depends on receiving those things from other people, because then you are constantly performing. You change your personality depending on who is watching. You hide your weaknesses. You exaggerate your strengths. You compare yourself to everyone around you. You become obsessed with being perceived as successful rather than actually becoming successful in ways that matter. And eventually, that becomes exhausting. Imagine instead that you wake up every morning focused on becoming better rather than appearing better. You exercise because you want a healthy body, not simply because you want compliments. You read because you want a stronger mind, not because you want to sound intelligent. You develop your career because you want to create something meaningful, not because you need strangers to admire your status. You build relationships because you genuinely value connection, not because you need someone to prove that you're desirable. Now your life has direction. You are no longer chasing attraction. You are building substance. And ironically, that is often when people begin to notice you more. Why? Because people are naturally drawn towards someone who has a life of their own. Someone who has interests, values, goals, curiosity, discipline. And purpose doesn't need to constantly demand attention. Their life already has momentum. They have something to contribute. They have stories because they have lived. They have wisdom because they have learned. They have confidence because they have overcome challenges. They have empathy because they understand struggle. They have perspective because they have experienced failure. That kind of person becomes interesting without trying to be interesting. This is why personal growth is such a powerful form of attraction. Every challenge you overcome adds another layer to your character. Every skill you develop increases your ability to contribute. Every difficult experience you learn from gives you greater emotional depth. You become someone with substance. And substance lasts longer than image, but becoming someone worth being around doesn't mean becoming perfect. Perfection is another form of performance. You don't need to eliminate every weakness before you deserve connection. You simply need to remain committed to growth, be willing to learn, be willing to apologize, be willing to change. Be willing to admit that you don't have all the answers. Be willing to become better than the person you were yesterday. That mindset creates humility and confidence at the same time. You also have to understand that being worth being around doesn't mean being available to everyone. You can be kind without allowing people to disrespect you. You can be generous without allowing people to take advantage of you. You can love people while maintaining healthy boundaries. In fact, boundaries are part of becoming someone worth being around because they teach others how to treat you and teach you how to respect yourself. Another important part of this transformation is learning to contribute. Ask yourself, what do people receive when they spend time with me? Do they receive encouragement? Do they feel heard? Do they feel respected? Do they feel inspired? Do they laugh? Do they learn? Do they feel safe enough to be honest? These questions shift your focus from attraction as a transaction to connection as a contribution. And that is where meaningful relationships begin. You don't need to walk into every room thinking, how can I make everyone notice me? Walk in thinking, how can I make this moment better? That could mean listening carefully. It could mean helping someone. It could mean sharing an idea. It could mean encouraging a person who is struggling. Sometimes your greatest contribution is simply being fully present. Over time, these small behaviors become your reputation. People begin to know you as someone dependable, positive, thoughtful, courageous, or inspiring. And that reputation becomes far more powerful than any carefully constructed image. So don't spend your entire life trying to become attractive enough to be chosen. Build a life that you are proud to choose. Develop your mind. Strengthen your body. Protect your values. Pursue meaningful goals. Learn from failure. Treat people with respect. Become dependable. Become curious. Become courageous. Become the person you would genuinely want in your own life. Because the ultimate goal isn't to make everyone want you. It is to become someone who brings value, meaning, energy, and humanity wherever you go. And when you stop chasing attraction and start building a meaningful life, something changes. You stop asking, do they find me attractive? You start asking, am I becoming someone I am proud to be? That is the question that changes everything.